happy and excited to share a little bit about my history. One of the things that was read in my bio is that I am a native of Petersburg, Virginia. And I like to tell people that because sometimes people only see you for who you are right now, but don't know the history that comes with you and your family history. And so my parents, well, I was born and raised in Petersburg, Virginia. My parents, Larry and Thurdale Dent, who I absolutely adore and love, are from, my dad is from Chesapeake, Virginia, but my mom is from Alexandria, Virginia, and she was born in Lynchburg. And one of the things that, you know, when we said we were going to talk about, you know, our family history and family histories and our journey, I was like, uh-oh, okay. I was like, there's some more research that I have to do because the reality of it is there are a lot of people of color that don't know all of their family history, and that includes me. So this weekend, I was very intentional about spending more time talking to one of my aunts because I knew about my dad's family in terms of my grandfather, Kiever Howard Dent, who was a longshoreman. And then I knew about my great-grandfather, Bishop Howard Dent from North Carolina, who actually had, with his wife, 21 children. And so, yes, 21 children. And so my grandfather, Kiever Howard, was one of those. But what I learned this weekend was the names of my great-grandfather and my great-great-great-grandfather. So talking about family history, one of the things that I learned is that my great-great-great-grandfather's name is Napoleon Dent. And he was from Warren County, North Carolina, and he was born around 1841. The records show two different things in two different places, but my family has 1845, but I saw 1841 somewhere else. But he was born an enslaved African. And so, you know, so my family history is different. It wasn't necessarily by choice that my family was brought to the Americas. But the beauty of that was I had the opportunity to see his emancipation documents. And so to see that, you know, I actually have a mug here that said my ancestors were not free in 1776, is because the emancipation documents show that my great-great-great-grandfather was emancipated on April 4th, 1865. And so I can't begin to tell you the feelings that I experienced this weekend, reading about his history, and then also about Ananias, who was his son, to learn about, like to know these names. For me, I've always said, you know, my ancestors, or I was the descendants of enslaved Africans, but to actually have a name to say was really big for me. And then on the other side of it, you know, I also have my mother's family. Like I said, my mother was raised in Alexandria, Virginia. And she was actually born in Lynchburg, and she was put up for adoption. So the grandmother that raised her was Rebecca Fleming, who we knew as grandma our entire life, but we also knew my mom's birth mother, Mary Bass. And so there's such richness to their stories. But because our podcast talks about faith and life and resilience, one of the things that I am most proud of is the resilience of my grandmother. So my grandmother, when she adopted my mom, was in her 60s, and she was 9 years old when she left her family because her mother went to Georgia. So she was on her own since she was 9 years old. But yet, you know, this woman managed to live a life where she was a cleaning lady for the Pentagon for many, many years. But she owned 2 houses at one point. And so I'm just baffled by the fact that this woman with a 4th grade education, who was also a very feisty person, in the sense that I'll say, my mom showed me that she actually had, like, she had a police record. So she was a fighter. She didn't take anything, but I'd imagine at being on your own since 9 years old, you had to learn how to fight. You had to, like, take care of yourself. So there are a lot of qualities between that grandmother and even my paternal grandmother, Geraldine Dent, again, a woman of resilience, who raised 4 beautiful children, you know, that I have those characteristics that they embodied. And so, you know, coming from Petersburg, Virginia, where, you know, it is, unfortunately, is ranked #2 as far as the poorest places to live in Virginia. It's a place where it's predominantly African American, and it doesn't have a high livable wage that people earned. So I also consider myself to be in a place of privilege to even have doctor in front of my name, to have been able to have 2 parents who were college sweethearts, to then, you know, continue my education and go forward. And so, you know, there's a lot of resilience in my family, and also a lot of fighters in my family. As my aunt said, you know, my aunt Eleanor said, she said, our family has very talented people. And so I celebrate that and realize that I stand on their shoulders. I wouldn't be who I am today without them. And I recognize that and I celebrate that. And so I'm the second of 3 children. I have an older sister and a younger brother, and I have lots of nieces and nephews that I love incredibly. And of course, my son. So all of this makes me who I am. And also, because of the diversity, even of our religious identities within my family. So my great grandfather was a holiness bishop. You know, my grandfather was a very dedicated Baptist deacon. My parents were Pentecostal. I was licensed as a Baptist minister, but at some point along the way, I was a part of many other religious communities that I embraced, and that was a big part of my spiritual formation. So there's a lot of texture to my history and my journey, as I'm sure that you all have the same.